cottage cheese has taken social media by storm, becoming a viral sensation in the realm of low-calorie frozen treats. Initially, it was simply mixed with various ingredients and popped into the freezer for a few hours, creating a delightful and guilt-free indulgence. However, with the rise in popularity of the Ninja Creamy, cottage cheese has transcended and become the star of the show as the base for creamy recipes. Its evident popularity lies in the comment section of my creamy video where Joseph, shout out Joseph for being a day one subscriber, said he uses cottage cheese in his base, resulting in the most liked comment and viewers requesting the recipe. I personally think these claims are outright blasphemy and knew I needed to do what I do best: get blindfolded and put things in my mouth. In today's video, I will embark on a journey of taste exploration. I will not only try 4 different cottage cheese ice cream recipes and compare them to their milk-based counterparts, but I will also compare their cost, macro breakdown, and how they are made, all in pursuit to see which is really the cream of the crop. Let's get into it. Since the recipes being put to the test mainly include either milk or cottage cheese, I think it is important to answer what exactly are milk and cottage cheese and how are they made. To put it simply, milk is a liquid produced by female mammals that is rich in essential nutrients such as proteins, fats, carbs, vitamins, and minerals. Once humans domesticated cows nearly 10,000 years ago, cow's milk started being consumed by humans. Today, production of milk is a very straightforward process which involves a machine that mimics a baby calf suckling on the teat of a cow. The milk is then filtrated and heated up or pasteurized to kill any bacteria. Afterwards, it is quickly cooled down, packaged, and then sent off to be sold. This leads directly into cottage cheese, which is made with, you guessed it, milk. Cottage cheese is a type of cheese generally known for its characteristic curd-like texture that packs a plentiful amount of protein per serving. It is really popular with bodybuilders as a late-night snack because of its slow-digesting protein it contains, casein, which, in theory, helps build muscle while you sleep since it takes longer to fully digest the protein. Making cottage cheese also follows a remarkably straightforward process and is made by heating up milk and adding an acid to it, like vinegar or lemon juice. The curds get separated from the leftover whey, and cottage cheese is made. Since ice cream is typically made with milk, cream, sugar, and a stabilizer, this was the basis for my low-calorie versions. I decided to make 3 versions with a vanilla base. They range from the lowest calorie to the highest calorie, and also went from the lowest flavor and consistency to the best. The obvious and most fair way to test these recipes side by side was to not only blindfold myself, but to make them exactly like each other except for one key substitution. Instead of my usual base of milk, I opted for a cottage cheese base. By only changing this one variable, I could truly evaluate the impact of cottage cheese as a replacement and determine its effects on the final product. So into my good vanilla base, I added almond milk, 1% milk, and vanilla extract. Into a separate cup, I added erythritol, which is a sweetener, salt, and xanthan gum. After mixing the dry ingredients together, I slowly added them to the wet ingredients and continued blending them for an additional 90 seconds. I then repeated the same process for my better vanilla-based recipe, except this time I used all 1% milk and no almond milk. For the cottage cheese version, I used all 1% cottage cheese, added vanilla extract, and then used an immersion blender to smooth it out. Cottage cheese has more salt than milk and also already includes stabilizers such as guar gum and carabine gum, so I didn't add any additional of either into this recipe. Instead, I just threw in the sweetener and blended for an additional 90 seconds until everything was smooth. The mix went directly into the pint, was labeled, and then put into the freezer. Now that our pints are waiting in the freezer, the question is, how do the calories, macros, and cost stack up against one another? On a gram for gram basis, cottage cheese has double the calories of milk, but most would say the trade-off is worth it since it also has quadruple the protein of regular milk and double the protein of high protein milk. When comparing per pint prices of the high protein milk to cottage cheese, the cottage cheese is about 30% more expensive. However, with the added protein, I would say the benefit outweighs the extra cost. Let's be real though, none of this information matters if the cottage cheese doesn't have superior taste, texture, and overall flavor. So the next day, I rinsed the outside of each pint for 1 minute and then spun them on the ice cream setting one after another. When they were all spun once, I spun them again on the respin setting, and it was time to test all of them side by side to see if I could tell a noticeable difference in taste and texture. Let me tell you right now, out of the gate, blending the cottage cheese one sucked ass. It was like so thick, super hard to do, but I was like, maybe this thickness will end up in a better consistency. From the looks of it, not too sure about that. Let's put on our blindfold. This ice cream has already been melting and I don't want it to melt anymore. So all I'm gonna do is have Ethan fast forward through this, and I'm just gonna keep talking because talking makes it harder for me to remember any of this, and I hope this all stays in the frame. I got 3 different spoons that I'm gonna use for each one. So I'm gonna start with this one. I'm gonna try to go in the middle. I don't want the sides where there's like ice shavings or whatever. Taste a little bit of iciness. This definitely tastes like a milk one, or at least I can't tell, oh my God, or at least I can't tell that there's any cottage cheese. Yeah, if this is not a milk one, I'd be shocked. There is a little bit of iciness, but I'm not gonna be able to tell if this is the good or the better, and so I try the better. But like I said, I highly doubt that this is 440 grams of cottage cheese. If it is, I'll be pleasantly surprised. That tastes even smoother. I think this is the better. Yeah, I'm enjoying this one a lot. Better mouthfeel, slightly. It's more about the ice crystals. Milk has less water in it than almond milk. And since it has less water in it than almond milk, it has less chance of crystallization when it's in the freezer and when it's like spun, respun, whatever. So I think this one's the better. This is the one I had first. This is the one I had second. Grab this last spoon. I think that this is gonna be the cottage cheese. I hope it's not. I mean, it sucks because I think it sounds nasty and repulsive, but maybe I could be pleasantly surprised, and this cottage cheese one is actually really good, and I can't tell the difference between the 3. Okay. Oh, that one's disgusting. This one's a cottage cheese. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's like tangy. I get when people now are like, I could taste the Greek yogurt in my old ice creams. I could never taste the Greek yogurt. I put so little of it. But I'm guessing this is the tanginess that they get, because this is overly salty, even though I didn't add any salt to it. It's like a sour, tangy. There's no like sweetness to it, even though I put the same amount of sweetener in this as I did in this. There's a little bit of ice crystal formation, but you could tell that this isn't like ice cream consistency. Even though it started out a lot thicker and I thought it might make a better cream consistency once it was spun, I'm not getting that. I will say, I will say the ice crystals are less, but I'm more interested to see if I got the good and better right, because that's definitely cottage cheese and that's nasty. Cottage cheese. This should be the better. Better. God. I'm telling you guys, when I make my recipes, I test them a ton of times, and with a blindfold on, I could tell the good from the better, and I could tell the better from the best as well, but obviously we don't have that one in front of us right now. But you could just tell the texture differences after the respins. These two looked like ice cream after the second respin. This one looked almost like cottage cheese. As far as texture, when you're actually biting into it, it's not that bad. It's just the tanginess, the saltiness, the disgustingness of what this tastes like as soon as it hits your tongue. Like, first couple times it made me want to gag. You start getting used to it after you have a couple bites, but it's not something that I want to get used to. I think they use milk and ice cream and not cottage cheese for a reason. If they got a better consistency with cottage cheese, I think they would use cottage cheese. But this is not the end of the experiments. There's a little bit more we can do to investigate and see maybe if cottage cheese still is a viable option. Before exploring more variations of cottage cheese ice cream, I think it is important to see the origins of when and why milk was used for ice cream in the first place. Although milk-based ice cream is rumored to have been eaten as early as 600 BC, the first documented use of milk in ice cream was in a recipe book called Lo Scalco alla Moderna and was written by Italian chef Antonio Latini in 1692. Hopefully my Italian is pretty good there. The book included sorbet recipes which don't include milk but are still enjoyed to this day, and also featured recipes that combined milk, sugar, and various flavorings, which is what we now call ice cream. So what makes milk so great for ice cream? 1. Availability. Milk is readily available and is consumed in many cultures. It has been an essential part of human diets for centuries, making it easily accessible for ice cream production. 2. Creaminess and texture. The proteins, fats, and sugars naturally found in milk combine to create the highly desired creamy and smooth texture of ice cream. The fat content helps create a smooth and rich mouthfeel, while the sugars and protein help control ice crystal formation. 3. Flavor profile. Milk provides a mild yet slightly sweet taste, which creates a neutral base perfect for ice cream.
You get the cream, the cookies, vanilla, sweetness.
The milk complements any added flavors such as vanilla, chocolate, or other mix-ins that are able to stand out while eating it. 4. Emulsification. Milk contains emulsifiers such as proteins and phospholipids, which help blend fat and water together. The emulsification helps stabilize the ice cream, making for a better mouthfeel and creaminess upon every bite. Fun fact, 9% of all the milk produced in the US every year gets used to make ice cream. If the cottage cheese ice cream couldn't hold a candle to the lower tier ice creams in the first round, I don't think it will stand a chance against the best vanilla base. However, for the sake of fairness, it should still be tested. For the best recipe, into a high-sided container, I added 2% milk, an egg yolk, a vanilla extract, and half of a vanilla bean. While using an immersion blender, I add the erythritol, salt, and xanthan gum into the mixture and blend for an additional 90 seconds. I think it is important to note all of the milk-based ice cream recipes in this video, plus 100 others, can be in your pocket wherever you go, so you can always stay on track with your diet. My cookbook updates with every recipe I upload, and you also have first access to the recipes before they are on YouTube, like my steak fajita meal prep, which is available in the cookbook as we speak. Get 10% off the cookbook by following the link in the pinned comment and using code E4CM. Now, for the cottage cheese counterpart, I add everything in the same way, but leave out the salt and xanthan gum, just like the first round.
Oh my god.
It wouldn't be a proper blindfolded taste test without a third competitor, and I thought this time we should use a combination of both milk and cottage cheese to see if we can create an even better texture without sacrificing on taste. To do this, I wanted to go back to the top comment on my video and use his recipe as inspiration while still incorporating details of my best vanilla based recipe. Into a high-sided container, I added 1% milk, cottage cheese, an egg yolk, and vanilla extract. Then into a separate bowl, I added erythritol and half of the xanthan gum and salt, since the cottage cheese already includes those straight out of the tub. I blended the wet and dry ingredients together and continued blending for 2 more minutes to make sure the cottage cheese was full. I blended the wet and dry ingredients together and continued blending for 2 more minutes to make sure the cottage cheese was fully broken down and everything was emulsified. I threw all of these into the freezer, and the next day I followed the same procedure as the first round for each pint. Pint wash, a mix on the ice cream setting, and a respin.
Okay, 2 things. 1, I just worked out. When I work out, my taste buds open up and I can taste everything. So I'm very excited to do this test, yet very nervous since I essentially gagged on the last cottage cheese ice cream. I'm afraid it's gonna happen again this time. Second thing, the creamy likes to act up sometimes. So usually I can do 1 spin and then I do a respin and it's perfect. This time I had to do a mix-in setting. Some people like to respin it again. I find doing another mix-in setting instead of a respin gives it a better consistency, but I had to do a additional mix-in setting, and sometimes you have to do an additional whatever setting that you prefer to get your desired consistency. So that's the one difference, but they all got the same ice cream setting, respin setting, and then mix-in setting. Like usual, the ice cream ones with milk look like ice cream. The one with cottage cheese looks like you purposely froze cottage cheese and you now have cold ass cottage cheese. However, This shit has been melting, so we're gonna put this towel on and take another dive into the deep end. Even though I've been super negative about the cottage cheese, I kind of do have high hopes for the cottage cheese milk blend, because maybe that could be something worth experimenting more in the future, but we'll see if it has that nasty tanginess like the last one had. Okay. What I'm hoping for with the cottage cheese one that has the milk in it is that it's similar consistency and taste wise and everything else wise, like ice chunks or ice crystals, to the best recipe that I love that's with milk. Here we go. This is the cottage cheese one with only one serving of cottage cheese. However, with some fruit, this might be really good. It's not bad, but you could taste the tanginess right away. So I'm gonna guess that this one is part goat cheese, part milk. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This one had a small amount of ice crystals, not many. This one, barely any. Mouthfeel was on point with that one. Mouthfeel was on point with this one, but less ice crystals, way better taste. God damn it, that means that one is the cottage cheese, and I'm gonna hate it, but you know what? This one's delicious. I'd be shocked if this is not the pure milk. It's not even at first. At first it tastes like, not taste like ice cream, but there's a mouthfeel of ice cream. And then it just gets sour as shit. It takes like 3 seconds for my mouth to register that it's, cottage cheese. Oh my God. But once it does, it's fucking awful. I thought I would really do good on like Fear Factor where you have to eat shit. But if I can't handle even cottage cheese ice cream, shit. I'm really looking poor if I ever were on Fear Factor. Full cottage cheese, all milk. Part cottage cheese, part milk, and let's see. And by far, the best one was the milk one. It's not even close. So, yeah, I could just tell by looking at it. Pure cottage cheese. This one's pure, mine, best, no cottage cheese. And like I thought, the hint of tanginess, cottage cheese, milk, and egg. I mean, it's never been more clear to me. A blindfolded taste test really gives you precise and very accurate decisions on what you perceive. And I could tell that this nasty ass shit was pure cottage cheese. I would never, ever, ever, ever make that viral cottage cheese thing and think it was good. I don't even like honey that much. So you could tell me, oh, what if you just put it in the little like aluminum whatever and then put it in the freezer and then wait a couple hours. First of all, people already said it's pretty icy. Second of all, it's pure cottage cheese and honey and like dates. Like, yeah, right. No, thank you. So I don't know how the hell that went viral, and I don't know how the hell so many people said that was great. Hell no. Now, like I said, I think this one that's half or a quarter and 3/4 milk, quarter cottage cheese, 3/4 milk, can have its applications, but you really got to mask it with other ingredients. All day, every day, I'm choosing the best. I'm choosing pure milk. And I could see why for centuries and centuries, people have been using milk and not cottage cheese.
Despite incorporating only a quarter of cottage cheese, the sour and tangy flavor proved to be overwhelming, while the texture fell short of the milk-only recipes. If you ask me, attempting to use a reduced amount of cottage cheese is not a worthwhile addition, particularly considering the higher cost for a subpar outcome. If you love cottage cheese, this cream may be for you, but if you ask me, cottage cheese should be consumed separately, while milk should remain the staple ingredient for ice cream. There is just one problem. All of these ice cream recipes were made with the Ninja Creami, and unless you buy a $6,000 Pacojet, you can't replicate these recipes. I did a deep dive analysis on the Creami to let you know if it was worth the $150 investment or not, which I highly recommend you watch by clicking on this video here. Until next time, deuces.